I am not teaching, I am publicly learning. But hi and welcome to Learning for the Life in UK Test, part 171, Conflicts in Afghanistan and Iraq while doing morning stretching. And if you participate in the morning stretching, that is at your own risk, and this video is about war and terrorism. So we're going through it basically again. So throughout the 1990s, Britain played a leading role in coalition forces involved in the liberation of Kuwait following the Iraqi invasion in 1990 and the conflict in the former Republic of Yugoslavia. So Britain was strongly involved in the coalition to liberate Kuwait, which was attacked by Iraq in the 1990s. And Britain had also an important role in the Yugoslavia conflict. Since 2000, British armed forces have been engaged in the global fight against international terrorism and against the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, including operations in Afghanistan and Iraq. So since 2000 there is going on the global fight against terrorism, and that basically the great initiator was the 9/11 attack on New York and the United States. And since then, Britain has an important part in fighting these groups, in particular Al-Qaeda, who are doing these attacks. And also Britain tries and had Britain tries that the proliferation, I don't really know what it means, but I guess it means that not weapons of mass destruction. Britain tries that not weapons of mass destruction coming into the hands of people who might use them. British combat troops left Iraq in 2009. So Britain was in Iraq, but that is the second Iraq war. So there are two Iraq wars. There was one with Kuwait, there was the liberation of Kuwait, and then there was a second one. I don't know exactly, I think 2004 did it start. I haven't written it. And Britain all over tries that people don't get weapons of mass destruction. And Britain said that we're going to go and look for the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, which Hussein should have had, according to Britain, what Britain said back then. Now, they are telling nothing about anything. They are saying that British armed forces have been engaged against the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. Then they're saying that Britain left Iraq in 2009. So they are not saying that Britain went to Iraq. Why? They are saying that Iraq invaded Kuwait, but that was in the 90s. No, in 2004, they are saying not why Britain went there. They're just saying that Britain tries that weapons of mass destruction, chemical weapons, do not come into the hands of people who might use them. And then they are just saying that Britain left Iraq again in 2009. Maybe we will come back to that, but the story basically is, as far as I know, that there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and that Britain knew that, as far as I know. But that they said they're going to Iraq to get these weapons of mass destruction, and Britain did at least, they claimed that they knew that they were there, and they at least knew that they are. Did not knew that they are some, and they did not found weapons of mass destruction. So where they are expressing that, what happened there in 2004, that the United States and the United Kingdom, but also some other countries, invaded Iraq, and saying that they're going to get the weapons of mass destruction, which then could not be found. So in other words, the Iraq had not some, and they said they had proof that they had some, but they could not then deliver that proof, is here expressed in this way, and we're just staying with that, according to that, because they are just not saying it. Since 2000, British armed forces have been engaged in the global fight against international terrorism and against the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, including operations in Afghanistan and Iraq. British combat troops left Iraq in 2009. So they are going nicely around it without mentioning any of it. So we're staying what we're saying here. We ourselves can do more research to it if you want. I don't know it all exactly. The UK now operates in Afghanistan as part of the United Nations, UN mandate 50-nation international security assistance force coalition and at the invitation of the Afghan government. So that is all outdated. What is coming now? That the UK is not operating in Afghanistan anymore when this book is for 2025. ISAF, so the International Security Assistance Force, is working to ensure that Afghan territory can never again be used as a safe haven for international terrorism, where groups such as Al-Qaeda could plan attacks on the international community. So the idea is that the United Kingdom makes sure that the troops and that other 50 nations, many other nations are there, that Afghan territory cannot used again for terrorism activities. Now that is all story of the past. We're going on, what we're writing here. As part of this, ISAF is building up the Afghan National Security Forces and is helping to create a secure environment in which governance and development can be extended. International forces are gradually handing over responsibility for security to the Afghans, who will have full security responsibility in all provinces by the end of 2014. So, as I said, this was written in 2013. We have in an asterisk here that it is heavily outdated, and with other words, completely wrong. So, the idea is here, let's start with the beginning. The ISAF, so the International Security Assistance Force, 50 nations or something I'm calling it, they are making sure that the Afghan territory cannot be used again as a safe haven for international terrorism. So, in Afghanistan, when the global war on terror began in the early 2000s, there were different terror groups, and they could live there and basically plan for their terrorism activities, which were then carried out, for example, with a 9/11 attack on the United States. And now they went there to the Afghan territory and making sure that not groups such as Al-Qaeda was the group who did the 9/11 attack, could not plan their more attacks. And that Britain helps to slowly build up the Afghan National Security Forces, so that the Afghan country becomes a stabilized country and has the Afghan National Security Forces, and that they're handing slowly over the responsibility to the Afghan government, so that Afghanistan is governing itself and has its own forces. Without that, in that country are terrorism groups like Al-Qaeda or Taliban. Now, it is all heavily outdated. Today, the Taliban are governing Afghanistan, and the Afghan government is not controlling anything of Afghanistan. And today, the Taliban, which is the group, is governing Afghanistan. So it is not handed, maybe it was handed over, but the built-up Afghan National Security Forces and the Afghan government basically could not establish full security, could not make the security responsibilities which were given to them back. So anything written here is heavily outdated and today wrong. But we can take it as it is at the time when it was written. I don't know when it was. It sounds like 2010 or something, optimism. So, let's take the sense again. The UK in 2010 operated in Afghanistan as part of the United Nations mandate 50-nation International Security Assistance Force coalition, and they tried to invite the Afghan government. I don't know to what. The International Security Assistance Force was working in 2010, let's just say 2010, to ensure that the Afghan territory can never again, or could not at that time, and hopefully maybe it was worked on, but it happened not in the future, again be used that terrorism groups such as Al-Qaeda could go to Afghanistan and were not persecuted, and plan for their attacks on the international community, such as the 9/11 attack. As part of this, ISAF was building up the Afghan National Security Forces, and the United Kingdom was helping to create a secure environment in which the governance and development could be extended of the Afghan National Forces. International forces were gradually handing over responsibility for the security of the Afghans to the Afghan government, who by the end of 2014 should have full responsibility. They having that asterisk here by 2014. I thought during the time, they had the asterisk, previously I thought when they had an asterisk that was just meant to the last sentence. Now I thought that is for the whole section, because that is completely, the whole thing is outdated, not just the last sentence. Now I think they actually mean the 2014 just with the asterisk. They think in this book still that all this is true, and that just the 2014 was prolonged to the handing over to 2015, 2016 responsibility to the Afghan government. It happened then around 2021, 2022. And it basically directly went over into the hands of the Taliban, not into the Afghan government. So the Taliban, basically directly after the United Nations and the United Kingdom and other countries left Afghanistan to control of Afghanistan. And today Afghanistan is almost fully controlled by the Taliban. So that is what we're having to the conflicts in Afghanistan and Iraq. We will maybe go another time over it, so that we know what they maybe want. Because they want what is written in this book and not what reality on the ground is. But it works actually pretty good, I think, to explain it, what were the intentions around 2010. It actually works pretty good, and that should be something which should be known for the life in the UK. What were the intentions of the people, of the government? Even now we are knowing a bit more. What were the intentions around during the 2000 and the 2010s? So maybe we'll go another time for that. Now we're doing just morning stretching. If you're here for 2010 onwards and Brexit, then you can just go to the next path. You can participate in the morning stretching at the center. Breathing in and going down. And breathing out. And again. And out. And again in. And out. Again in. And out. And the last round, breathe in. And out. In. And toss the legs in. We don't have time for full morning stretching. We're doing just a few exercises. We're breathing in. Lifting the outside. Breathing out, going to the side. And breathe in and open the rib cage. And again out. And again in. And out into the middle. Breathe again in. And out to the other side. And breathe in and open the rib cage. And out. And again in. And out into the middle. And breathe again in. And out, one hand slides down the leg, and the other shoulder stays down. And again in. And out, taking the arm up. And breathe again in and out the rib cage. And out into the middle. And breathe again in. And out, one hand slides down the leg. Breathe in. And out, we're taking one arm over. Breathe again in and out the rib cage. And again out. And again in. And out. Out in the middle. And we don't have time. So we're just closing. And breathing in. And out. Again in. Out. Again in. Out. In. Out. Cross the legs. And out. Thank you very much. And until next time.